Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee. Welcome to my YouTube live stream this morning as we watch this southern snowstorm move through and watch the internet signal snowstorm that I had a little while ago. So hopefully I've cleared things up and we have no issues. But if we start getting signal hits here, I'm going to probably cut the live stream short rather than just go on. So I appreciate everybody's patience and coming back. Those of you who have come back. So I'm going to probably go over some things that we've already went through before, but let's just for review take a look at what is happening throughout this snowstorm that is under snow and ice and rainstorm that is underway in the southeastern part of the U.S. So, starting off with I think what I'm going to do this time around, I'm going to start back with those snowfall forecast maps from the Weather Service with regards to what are the additional snowfalls that are going to be occurring. In some places, the snow is in Northern Virginia, for example. You're seeing the snows beginning that northern edge, getting to just south of the Washington, D.C., Annapolis area, where the Weather Service is going for less than a coating to less than an inch. And then you start to see these 1 to 2 inch amounts as you go further to the south. You can get all of these maps by going to the local National Weather Service office pages at weather.gov. But to make it easier, I have them actually all on one page from Maine down to Georgia. And you can do that by going to meteorologist Joe Chaffee and just click on the snow forecast tab. Plus, I also put up a couple of posts in the last few days that have those maps on them as well. And they automatically update. So if you were to refresh them later on in the day, you would get the updated maps. But you can see that the amounts get larger as you get down toward Fredericksburg, Staunton, and Charlottesville, 4 to 6 inches. This is where we start to get into the winter storm warning areas where the winter weather advisories are up further to the north. Also, when you use these maps, always remember to check the timestamp at the top. Okay, you can see here on this particular map, the timestamp goes from 4 a.m. This morning to 1 a.m. on the 11th. All right, so just make sure you check the timestamps, and also be aware that snow that has already fallen is probably excluded from these numbers. So this is not a total storm forecast at this point because we have the storm underway. So those were your amounts, by the way. Morristown, Johnson City. You start to get to the Tennessee side, and you get into that snow shadow situation because of the mountains. In northern North Carolina, the timestamp here was from 4 a.m. this morning to 7 a.m. on the 10th, so that's tomorrow morning, and the 1 foot plus snows across the southern parts of Virginia, South Boston, Martinsville, Danville, all with a foot or more. Galax, 11 at Roanoke, 10 at Blacksburg, and then you get into North Carolina. Boone, Wilkesboro, Mount Airy, Reidsville, all with 1 foot plus total snows. Further south, we start to see the amounts kind of tail off. But again, here, remember, it snowed overnight in a lot of these areas. Areas on the southeast side of this, by the way, have been dealing with serious ice issues with temperatures near freezing. Salisbury, Charlotte not getting as much snow because of how this wedge of cold air wedged down the Appalachians. But another 6 to 8 for Morganton, Statesville, Lenoir, Newland, Burnsville. You start to get into western North Carolina, you're looking at an additional 1 to 3 inches from Marshall, Asheville, and Brevard. And of course, now the snow issue is done in northern parts of South Carolina. Actually, started snowing early yesterday evening in Greenville, Spartanburg. So it kind of showed you how important that cold air became as it pushed down far enough to the south to cause snow to fall in those areas up in northern parts of South Carolina. But we are watching the back edge of this now, making progress on the radar. And you can see it on the loop. It's just about all done in Georgia and still going on in South Carolina on up into North Carolina. And further north, just to also show you the northern fringe of this on the radar is moved up into southern Virginia. Again, that wall looks like it's right down to Washington, just south of Washington, D.C., the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula getting it. You got some precip aloft right to the southern Delaware state line, and that's probably as far north as all of this is going to get with respect to the precip that's going to reach the ground. Here's the HRRR. I think I got this is the 12Z. Do we have a lot of the 13Z? And we do. So this is the latest HRRR. Matches up pretty well with the radar. And you see that area in northwestern South Carolina is all freezing rain, a narrowing strip through interior central North Carolina. There's a warm intrusion aloft that's pushing northward. You've got the low-level cold air kind of wedging southward, and they're battling it out in the Carolinas today. So in North Carolina, you're probably going to start to see a decreasing area of snow into this afternoon. The heavy snow shifts north of the state line into Virginia this morning into this afternoon. And again, you see that northern edge just makes it just about to southern Delaware on the HRRR, and that's about it. And actually starts off as mix of rain, and then you even get a little bit of a band of snow there right near the Delaware border. But that's as far north as it gets. I got such a chuckle late yesterday afternoon from folks letting me know how certain weather pages were hawking that this thing was moving further north and it was never going to be a threat here. I mean that when people do that sort of stuff, I actually to be honest, I actually don't mind that they do it because then everybody comes to me to get verified, and that's a good thing for me. But it's so ridiculous. I mean, it really it's stupid. Okay, they're doing stupid stuff, and it just makes me shake my head. All right, so here's your HRRR for later on, and then it moves out to the northeast. We can actually also go to the new NAM, which is just now finished, and watch this evolve and move out to the northeast. So there you go. There's your low center off the North Carolina coast. The NAM has the same idea here, with the heavy snow moving out to the northeast and the low moving away. So at this point, we are now at time-wise, this is 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. So as precip lightens up in North Carolina, it may actually go back to some light rain as temperatures edge up above freezing. You've got this second low that's going to try and develop, and the NAM is not really overly impressed with it, nor really is the HRRR. The precip that it shows for Monday is on the light side, kind of shifts more toward the coast, and then that low moves on out to the northeast. Just want to touch quickly on the long range, just to give it a look. I'm going to keep this particular live stream on the short side today, considering what happened earlier. So, so you're going to get, you still have troughing here in the east until you get that trough out of the way. That's not going to take, that's going to take probably much into the middle part of this week, and you get into this ridge in the east. So you notice the whole upper air jet stream is kind of changing. You don't have a northerly flow from Canada by the time we get to the middle part of the week. It gets more westerly across the U.S. and across southern Canada in general. So that really limits the amount of cold air around. Yet we still have some rather strong systems in play. And next weekend, we are going to probably be dealing with energy moving up the East Coast in some fashion. I think it's going to probably wind up being some sort of an inland low. There won't be any real cold air around going in through later next week. Temperatures are not going to be off the wall warm by any means. We're probably going to get to average or a little bit above, but there's not going to be any kind of Canadian or Arctic air in play. So precip is going to be in the form of rain. And we're really going to have to start waiting till we get toward December 19th, December 20th you start to see the chess pieces moving around a bit. The model is attempting to do some blocking across the North Atlantic and extending it through northern Canada, and it reestablishes that cold Canadian flow. Well, by the time we get closer to Christmas Day. Now, it's not crazy cold, but it does bring back a colder looking pattern in the longer range. It's been doing this for a few days now. It may, I think it's still at the point of trying to figure out where this starts in terms of timing, because sometimes you get a series of model runs where everything gets sort of pushed back another 12 hours, another 12 hours, another 12 hours, and it almost seems like it never gets here. So I think we're at the point where the model's just sort of trying to figure out, when it's going to start to change it back to a colder scheme, whether it happens right before Christmas or right shortly afterwards. But I think that's the direction that we are going in, that we getting a bit of a break from the primary pattern that we've been in, and we're going to go, eventually go back to something resembling what we've been in for the last 6 or 7 weeks. At least that's my opinion on it at the moment. But you should see how the low just kind of clears out. High pressure builds in for the Northeast, for the Mid-Atlantic states, for my area, from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. There's a lot of high clouds today and into tonight. Have to wait for all of this to pull out. Looks like a dry week, and here comes that next low for next weekend. So this looks to be more like a Friday, Saturday thing. By the way, those of you in the where you're getting your big snows in the interior Mid-Atlantic with the deep snowpack, you've got this low coming out at the end of the week. This could mean for some serious flooding issues for late next week and next weekend as low pressure moves up the coast. So this would be Thursday, Friday. You actually start seeing precip developing late Thursday and Friday in the southeast and moving up through the Mid-Atlantic states. So that's a lot of heavy rain here that's being indicated with this low that's going to be developing and moving up the Appalachians. So just bear that in mind, that you're going to go from a big snowstorm to perhaps some major flooding issues toward the end of the week as that the next low comes out. And you got energy coming into the west with rain and snow here going through next week, this week, and next week. Most of what goes on this week, just back it up, is in the Pacific Northwest. You got a couple of waves of energy coming in, and then it starts to gradually shift southward next weekend and into next week. So considering the time of year, we have gotten, since the middle part of November, we've actually had quite an active late fall, early winter pattern. Doesn't really get much more active than this. But this is why I don't get too crazy caught up in the long range, because of the fact that I much rather enjoy watching these patterns, um, uh, evolve inside the 2 week period, and I'll let the long range take care of itself. Rich, 8013, Raleigh Durham area, 4 to 8 inches in snowfalls as of 10 a.m. and now with freezing rain. Yeah, there's that warm intrusion that's kind of pushing its way northward into North Carolina. You get that big thump and that big burst of snow, as Jason Nappy pointed out when he live streamed with me back a couple of days ago. You get that big intrusion, that warm air intrusion pushing northward. You get the thump of snow, and then go over to freezing rain. There's going to be some really serious icing problems down there, and they're going to be dealing with this for the next couple of days at least. Bobby Whitaker, freezing rain from 11:30 last night until 9 this morning. Now heavy snow in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Yep, you were in that. The heavy snow now shifting into Southern Virginia. Izzy D personally thinking that the chance for a good cold and snow looks better come early January, and you'll have to wait. Well, I mean, the timing of the next change in the pattern is probably going to come at the end, toward as we get closer to Christmas and beyond, and it may take about a week to get it all sort of organized. So yeah, that probably times out pretty well. Hey, Rick 8013, you get any interesting stuff from that Raleigh Durham chat board, additional interesting stuff, please post it. I'd be, certainly very curious. Sometimes while storms are going on, it's a little difficult to gather information. I'm kind of doing it. You guys are wonderful by, you're sort of doing, two or three things at once. Bertha Gunter, Asheville, Canton Boulevard, Hayward County getting most of the snow. How much snow and ice have you gotten where you are? Cullen, December pattern looks volatile. That's pretty typical in December. You do get a lot of volatility, and that certainly has played out. You got to remember too, because when you start the month and the average temperatures are still pretty high and dropping at a rate of about 1 degree every 3.5 days. So when you've got a pattern like when you've got a seasonal pattern like that, where you've got rapid drops or rapid rises in temperatures like you do in the spring, it does lead to a lot of weather volatility. So your spring and your autumn months are really your two volatile months. Your winter and summer should be your two relatively stable months. And I'm describing the tone of the season, not necessarily saying that you've got stable weather, okay, but just the tone of the season. Um, okay, so the 2022nd, so you're looking way ahead. I, you know, yeah, I didn't even take a look at the teleconnections there, David. Let me see what they look like. Um, actually, pretty interesting. Hang on. So take a look at these teleconnections for the longer term, folks, because they're not that bad actually. For those of you who want more winter weather, um, this kind of makes sense. You do have the NAO going negative. Now you got to remember the NAO measures a lot of things and it's over a large area of geography. You could have a negative NAO, but not necessarily have a very strong blocking signature. I would look. You look at these signals, you just wonder with this the PNA forecast to go off the wall going into Christmas. The EPO goes from really off the wall positive this week and crashes down to neutral around the same time with the spiking PNA and that NAO going negative around the 23rd. So right around Christmas, right? This would certainly suggest maybe around December 24th, 20, right around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, somewhere in there. Let's watch this. Let's over the next couple of days. Let's watch this play out and see if it takes us anywhere, because it might not. All right, it may just be much ado about nothing. But I'm that judging from what the upper air showed up on the GFS before, that's actually a very interesting set of teleconnections that are being forecast going forward. Only the NAM 3K and the H drops seem to show convective bands properly. They go from 0 to 6 inches in roughly 25 miles south of DC. Yeah, there's always a wall with these things, Joshua. You literally can sometimes just walk um, with you literally, sometimes you can walk just a handful of miles. That happened here in the 16 storm in areas just north of New York City. You literally could walk 2 miles and go from a dusting to a foot. Bertha Gunter, very little for where you are. That's interesting. It's always about the wedge and how the wedge of cold air sets up, and that I'm not exactly sure where you are in terms of in Western North Carolina, but some areas have done fairly well with this. It's always I gotta I gotta give some credit to the forecasters down there. It's frustrating when you don't see these things on a regular basis and you have to forecast them. It becomes rather difficult. It's a rather difficult proposition to try to forecast this stuff like this when you don't see it. You're in Transylvania County getting most right now, and Boone, like Scott said, in Canton at 11 inches. Got you. Stephen Franco, if the Mid-Atlantic or the South Atlantic get a decent snowpack this year, would it have any influence on our pattern up here? Stephen, don't forget, the snowpack down south it disappears a lot faster than it does here when we get it. So, in fact, if later this week, a lot of that snowpack's going to disappear. Now, that being said, if you get into, in winters where we've had uh, cold Arctic air that's lasted for a couple of weeks at a stretch, and it's pushed all the way down into the southeast, where you do have a snow and ice pack, it does have impact. It can have impact on weather here. I've seen it where you've gotten a situation where you've gotten southwest winds coming in from West Virginia, interior Virginia, and the Tennessee Valley, where it's all snowpack, and it slows the warm up in the eastern part of the U.S. when that happens, and it oftentimes can cause the cold air actually to get trapped on a southwest damming situation where it kind of wedges down into the mountains of Virginia. I think we had an instance like that a couple of years ago, maybe in one of the winters. It was either 13, 14 or 14, 15, where we had this Arctic high that went out off the New Jersey coast. It was brutally cold air, and while we eventually warmed up here over freezing in the next weather system that changed over to rain, it was basically freezing rain and sleet from like southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania, south and west. So it can have impact. This snowpack's not going to last because of the warm up and the rain coming at the end of this week, and there could be some serious flooding issues in those areas that are now getting heavy snow. Supposed to fly Chris Bethune to Charlotte Monday afternoon. American Airlines says too close to call, or they will mass cancel flights on Monday. Wondering if I should prepare for a late night of getting rerouted. Well, you know what? You might. I don't. My problem with the airport questions is I can just give you the obvious answer. I can't. I don't. Every place has got its own criteria for how they operate, how they shut down, when they cancel flights. So your best bet, you have already kind of done your best, the best thing, which is to contact your airline and the local airports. I It all depends on how quick that they can clean up whatever they're dealing with, be it sleet or freezing rain or heavy snow. But I would think that even in the areas that are getting the heavy snows, they're getting it so infrequently that they get it so infrequently that it just takes time for them to get the whole mess cleaned up. So yeah, you're going to have delays. Jason, this whole pattern has been frigid in the New York City area. I can't believe I'm seeing frozen ponds. Yeah, you can think, Jason, of how many years that we've gone through the whole month of December and even into January where nothing freezes over. So that does happen too. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I was looking at some of the water temperatures down in Maryland and Virginia this morning in Chesapeake Bay. They're quite cold. They're down in the upper 30s and low 40s. Now, granted, Chesapeake Bay is a pretty shallow body of water, so the water does cool quite a bit, and it tends to get brackish as you go further to the north. But nonetheless, the water temperatures offshore have actually, there's a cold pool the last time I looked about a week or so ago, sitting off the northeast coast down to Maryland and Delaware. Cold water temperatures running about 4 or 5 degrees below average. So I think a lot of that has to do, obviously there's all kinds of current issues that bring cold pools down from the north, but we've had colder than average weather since mid-October. We've had a number of systems move up the coast that have caused a lot of upwelling. So the ocean water is definitely on the cold side. Ice fishing in Lakeside on Saratoga Lake this weekend, Timothy Veltman. That's interesting. Well, you've had some really cold air up there, and the waters are freezing up. I don't think the Great Lakes 99 Wolves, I don't think Erie and Ontario are frozen all the way across. Maybe it's been cold enough to freeze the areas, the shallow areas closer to the coast. But I doubt that it's frozen all the way. Definitely not, because otherwise the lake effect machines would be shutting down, and they're still working overtime. Uh, okay, so thanks, Rick. 8013, just north of Raleigh, Youngsville, North Carolina, Franklin, 9.5 as of 10 a.m. Amazing. Water temperature drop off Long Island. Yes, William Huber, absolutely correct. You're going to see records broken through the Carolinas. Um, you know, and there are going to be a lot of areas that are going to break their all-time snowfall, 24-hour snowfall amounts, and probably um, uh, certainly the daily and monthly records are probably going to go in some places as well. I think Atlanta has been pretty much rain, Chris. For Atlanta itself, it's been pretty much a rain issue. Now there probably will be some delays related to everything else that's going on in the southeast, but there was no freezing rain that I saw in the Atlanta metro area. It was north and east of there that it occurred. Let's see. 99 wolves, 1 foot in the mountains of North Carolina. You see it on the cam with the ruler, not in North Carolina. Oh, that you're not in North Carolina. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of good campsites out there to take a look at. Um, by the way, Scott, thanks for reminding me. Those of you on Long Island, Wednesday, I'll be at the Babylon Library at 7 p.m. In Babylon, New York, which is a good place to have the Babylon Library. Uh, but that's at 7 o'clock. So I will be live streaming that on YouTube, assuming that I don't have any signal issues there. But we're certainly going to give it a try to live stream from the library. But if you are on Long Island, that's Wednesday, the 12th at 7 p.m. All right, and I'll put more information about that up on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, later today. The Center Reach Library Reaver has had me a couple of times, and usually, once or twice. I did it twice last year. That's up to them now. It's up to them to see if they want to do it again. If they do, I don't think it's going to be until wouldn't be until the late spring at the earliest, because a lot of these places like to boot up. I'm sorry, book these things several to 6 months in advance. And let's see, any interest? Just trying to run back to make sure I got all of you guys. It's nice to see most of the regulars are on this morning, and those of you who are lurking in the background, welcome aboard, and do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, which is absolutely free. This is farther north than predicted. Well, I don't know, Will. I'm not sure what you mean by farther north. I mean, the northern fringe did push up closer to the Washington, D.C. area, but it's not really getting much further, close to the Washington, D.C. area, but it's not going to go much further north than that as everything starts to slide out to the southeast. Shannon Culbreth, is this a sign of what is to come later in the winter for the southeast? I think that this was certainly a shot across the bow. Yeah, I would probably suspect that this is not going to be the only system that will be impacting the South, especially that especially if we see the colder setup that evolves. If we take this pattern that we were in and kind of just normalize it to January into February, then yeah, you're going to see more of this sort of thing. And I think it would be a fairly interesting and rather wild January and February if that is the case. Bastardi was wrong, and he said it would get to southern New Jersey. Well, the high clouds did, you know. Um, I, I what can I tell you? I've been saying for a week that the northwest flow in the northeast over New England was going to be hugely problematic in bringing this up the East Coast. You can't fight against that. And I went back and looked. Everybody then at that point was you get the usual. Well, the models are all over the place. Models are always all over the place. Okay, even when you get into the short range, models are always all over the place. That's just how they are. and you know, your job is to sort of figure out where it's going to go from the standpoint of the short range forecast. The point is that if you don't recognize what the actual weather pattern that you have, if you don't spend the time to recognize what that pattern is, then all you're really doing is just basically reading a map. If you have to, you got to gain an understanding of what is actually happening in the upper atmosphere. And as we illustrated, and again, I can actually do that right now. If you give me a second here, I'm going to, I will. So actually, that was nice. Went almost 30 minutes without taking a signal hit, but apparently there's some issues now going on in some areas. We're trying to get tropical tidbits, and I guess everybody is on there at the same time. So you know what? Look, the bottom line is I'll make my minutes. There's obviously a local issue happening. So let's just wrap it here at this point. Those of you who are interested, complete weather coverage on my Patreon platform. Okay, that's a subscription weather platform that I've set up a couple of months ago, and it is doing great. I really appreciate it very much. Those of you who have joined on here, thank you very much. It's $2 a month, folks. It's the price of a cup of coffee, and you get a lot of weather, and you get live streams just for Patreon members, and so much more. Plus, you can message me at any time, and I will respond in a timely manner. So I put the link up on there again. That's just $2 a month. I have a free weather app, okay, and that's available on Google Play. So if you are in the New York City, Long Island, Northern New Jersey, Southern Connecticut, Hudson Valley area, this app will work for you, okay? And you'll get not only my posts, but you're actually able to watch these live streams in case you can't get to YouTube or wherever it is, whatever the issue is. You can actually watch it from your mobile device on the app. So that link is up there for you as well. And we're seeing that grow nicely. I don't have an iPhone version yet, but there will, where we're just waiting for Apple's approval. We've got some technical issues with the Apple to take care of, but hopefully we will be able to do that and have that very, very soon. Believe me, I'm frustrated. I want to have that thing out there. Also, thank you for those of you who have used my Amazon link, and I'm going to put this up on here. So if you shop on Amazon, this is a great, easy way to support my channel. It is pretty straightforward and easy. It doesn't cost you a dime. But if you happen to be shopping on, if you shop on Amazon, you can pretty straight. There we go. If you shop on Amazon, you can use this link, and we're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC affiliates program. It's a program designed for my channel to be able to earn fees from Amazon by linking to them and their affiliated site. So it doesn't cost you an extra dime if you're doing your shopping, and they throw me back. They still put a few cigars in my Christmas stocking, and I really appreciate it. All right, thanks very much for being here tonight. Those of you in the southern mid-Atlantic and the southeast, the snow lovers among you are really having a great time, I'm sure, watching your early December snowstorm. So enjoy it. You don't get these opportunities for you snow lovers too often as you go down into the Carolinas and Virginia. So when they come, enjoy the snow, have fun, take lots of pictures. And for the snow lovers that are up in the northern mid-Atlantic and in the Northeast, I understand your frustration because there's this idea that we should be getting every single snowstorm that moves up the East Coast from the beginning of November to the end of May. And that doesn't quite work like that either. So have a great day and stay safe. Very important. Stay safe. And we'll see you tomorrow.